What do you want 50 years from now, history to say about Kamala Harris?
I hope that, and I really do work, that my life will have proven to have been a life that is about fighting for the people.
The cost of that softball interview was a whopping $500,000. That is what the Harris campaign provided to Al Sharpton's nonprofit to her sit-down interview with Sharpton, and that's certainly raising some eyebrows, certainly because, you know, it goes against common journalistic ethics.
In today's video, we join Cenk Uygur and Ana Kasparian as they dive into a political and media firestorm. Allegations claim Kamala Harris's campaign funneled $500,000 to Al Sharpton's nonprofit. Just weeks before a softball interview aired on MSNBC, critics are slamming the lack of disclosure, calling it a clear breach of journalistic ethics. But this story goes beyond a single donation. It examines Sharpton's legacy, allegations of racial misogyny, and the rising skepticism toward mainstream media. Watch as we
50 years from now, history to say about Kamala Harris.
I hope that, and I really do work, that my life will have proven to have been a life that is about fighting for the people.
Allegations against Al Sharpton have reignited debates over media ethics and political transparency. Reports claim Kamala Harris's campaign funneled $500,000 to Sharpton's nonprofit, the National Action Network. Just weeks before a soft interview with her aired on MSNBC, the donation split into two $250,000 installments on September 5th and October 1st were never disclosed by Sharpton during the broadcast, sparking outrage over what critics call a blatant breach of journalistic standards. Cenk Uygur and Ana Kasparian condemned the undisclosed financial ties, warning that such actions erode public trust and highlight a moral collapse in journalistic integrity. They say the scandal serves as a stark reminder of how financial and political interests can compromise institutions meant to hold power accountable. On
Of that softball interview was a whopping $500,000. That is what the Harris campaign provided to Al Sharpton's nonprofit prior to her sit-down interview with Sharpton, and that's certainly raising some eyebrows, certainly because, you know, it goes against common journalistic ethics. But nonetheless, the Harris campaign made two separate $250,000 donations to Al Sharpton's National Action Network, an anti-discrimination group, on September 5th and on October 1st, the second coming weeks before Sharpton interviewed Harris on the network. Now, Sharpton did not mention the contributions that the Harris campaign made to his nonprofit at all. There was no disclosure about it whatsoever. And as far as MSNBC goes, they told Chuck Ross at the Washington Free Beacon that they were unaware of the campaign donation. Or the donation to the nonprofit owned by Al Sharpton. Now, that could be true. I don't know, but MSNBC would not confirm whether they're considering reprimanding Sharpton, if there's going to be any consequences for this. Now, the Society of Professional Journalists also told the Free Beacon, while Al Sharpton may not consider himself a journalist, many viewers do. When TV news broadcasters do not report their conflicts of interest or conduct their work in ways that run counter to ethical journalism, it builds distrust among their audiences and places a black eye on both their network and the profession.
Sharpton's long history of controversies has made him a lightning rod in debates over his influence in politics and social discourse. Critics like Cenk Uygur and Ana Kasparian have highlighted his problematic past. From the infamous Tawana Brawley case, where he supported false allegations of sexual misconduct by a white police officer, fueling racial tensions, to his involvement in the 1990s Brooklyn riots, where he was accused of stoking conflict between black and Jewish communities. Sharpton's actions have often sparked widespread outrage. Adding to this are allegations of extortion-like tactics, reportedly pressuring businesses for financial contributions under the threat of being publicly labeled racist. Critics argue that while his methods may have evolved, the underlying approach remains the same, leveraging political and media connections to secure ever larger financial gains. This pattern, they contend, shows a consistent exploitation of racial and social issues for personal and professional benefit.
Earlier, I think it was last week, we had Representative Ro Khanna on the show, and we asked him the questions we wanted to ask him. Had Ro Khanna provided a donation to a nonprofit that doesn't exist, I don't have a nonprofit, I would at least have to disclose that to you, but that would be a conflict of interest. I wouldn't have taken that money to begin with, because that money influences the way you're going to carry out this interview.
Okay, can we just be honest? Al Sharpton is the original grifter. So if you don't know, back in the days in New York, anytime there was any kind of racial conflict, this fat ass would show up in a jumpsuit, and he would demagogue against Jews, by the way, specifically, and get people super mad to the point where they nearly attacked Jewish people. And he was a menace, an absolute menace in the New York area, okay? And then all that got magically forgiven. Why did it get forgiven when that stuff never gets forgiven?
Why did it get forgiven?
Because he decided to embrace professional corruption.
MSNBC's handling of the Al Sharpton donation scandal highlights the growing credibility crisis in mainstream media. The network's claim of ignorance regarding Kamala Harris's $500,000 donation to Sharpton's nonprofit strains belief and exposes a glaring lack of accountability. Despite the clear ethical breach, Sharpton faced no reprimand, signaling a reluctance to enforce standards when powerful political and social figures are involved. This incident reflects a broader problem in corporate media, where institutional bias and financial incentives often override objectivity, turning a blind eye to conflicts of interest. Critics also point to deeper cultural and political dynamics. Sharpton is accused of leveraging racial issues for personal and financial gain, drawing comparisons to tactics used by the Black Lives Matter movement pressuring corporations and institutions under the banner of social justice, sometimes with questionable motives. Adding to the controversy is the notion of black privilege, suggesting figures like Sharpton are shielded from scrutiny because of their race and alignment with Democratic politics. Critics argue this double standard allows individuals to exploit identity politics to evade accountability, further eroding public trust in social justice movements and media institutions alike.
Back in the day, because he didn't know any better, right? But he's a smart guy, so he wisened up and he's like, oh, the way the professionals do this is they kiss the ass of the donors, they kiss the ass of the politicians, and they get the real money, the big money. And did he shake down a lot of businesses saying, hey, if you don't give me money, I'm going to call you racist? Okay, go ahead and catch feelings. Yes, he did. Okay, and do you want to know how Comcast was allowed to merge and actually acquire NBC and MSNBC? They had a massive race problem. Al Sharpton came in and said, no, they don't have any race problem. Guess where Al Sharpton wound up? Hired by Comcast at MSNBC. Funny how that works, right? He got way better on his grift, okay? And he's been taking this kind of money his whole life, and that's why he does the softball news. That's why if you criticize Al Sharpton in the old days, people will be like, God damn, yes. Now, if you criticize Al Sharpton, they go, oh, well, you're being a racist. Racist! No. Why? Because he's now part of the establishment. So now his new mob, the establishment cartel, protects Al Sharpton, and as he runs the scam time and time again. And there he is sitting on Morning Joe as they lecture about good journalism, a story we covered earlier in the show, right?
Wow.
Come on.
I knew some of that about Al Sharpton. I didn't know about him shaking down businesses in New York with allegations of racism.
Oh, I mean, he went on and on. He was in the middle of creating riots. So he would go into the most, flammable situations, for lack of a better word, and he would come in there with a match and start lighting things on fire, right? And when he went after it, he said, oh, the Jews are running these businesses, and riled people up against Jewish Americans. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen. And so that happens from time to time with Nick Fuentes, etc. But Nick Fuentes is like
persona non grata.
Yeah, he's totally shunned by everyone who's legitimate. But Al Sharpton welcomed with open arms. Why? Because he switched up.
Uygur has taken a surprising stance by publicly criticizing Al Sharpton, despite their shared progressive political views. This rare moment of introspection highlights Uygur's growing frustration with the Democratic Party and its failure to address ethical lapses within its ranks. He sees Sharpton's actions, most notably the undisclosed donations linked to Kamala Harris's campaign, as symptomatic of a deeper problem: systemic corruption that infiltrates both the political establishment and its media allies. By calling out these unethical practices, Uygur exposes the blatant hypocrisy of a party that claims high moral standards while turning a blind eye to conflicts of interest that erode public trust. His criticism serves as a broader indictment of how financial motives and personal alliances have compromised the integrity of platforms meant to hold the powerful accountable.
Is the best grift of all. You set up a nonprofit, they funnel you $500,000, you kiss their ass on air, and if anybody accuses you of anything, you just call them racist. So he's been playing identity politics his whole life. He's nothing but a grifter. So if any of you catch feelings over that because you were part of his grift and he donated a little bit to your show or he donated a little bit to your organization, by the way, that's a smart way to run the grift. What you do is you dole out a little tiny taste of the money you got from giant corporations, etc., so that everybody shuts up about the scam that you're running. So there you go. And look, I didn't say any of it was illegal. It's my opinion that he's a giant grifter, okay? And you could look up all that information on your own.
I mean, I think Boris Epstein should have Al Sharpton on retainer for how to professionalize his grift.
Yeah, Boris is an amateur compared to Al Sharpton.
Wow.
MSNBC's handling of the Al Sharpton donation scandal highlights the growing credibility crisis in mainstream media, the network's claim of ignorance regarding Kamala Harris's $500,000 donation to Sharpton's nonprofit strains belief and exposes a glaring lack of accountability. Despite the clear ethical breach, Sharpton faced no reprimand, signaling a reluctance to enforce standards when powerful political and social figures are involved. This incident reflects a broader problem in corporate media, where institutional bias and financial incentives often override objectivity, turning a blind eye to conflicts of interest. Critics also point to deeper cultural and political dynamics. Sharpton is accused of leveraging racial issues for personal and financial gain, drawing comparisons to tactics used by the Black Lives Matter movement pressuring corporations and institutions under the banner of social justice, sometimes with questionable motives. Adding to the controversy is the notion of black privilege, suggesting figures like Sharpton are shielded from scrutiny because of their race and alignment with Democratic politics. Critics argue this double standard allows individuals to exploit identity politics to evade accountability, further eroding public trust in social justice movements and media institutions alike.